My argument has always been simple. I am unbelievably privileged, okay? I am unbelievably fortunate. My job is basically like winning the lottery every single day, okay? And I never take it for granted. And from my position, I don't think people should have to be winning the lottery every single day to have some autonomy in their lives, to have a little bit of time off when they want to spend time with their friends and family, to have disposable income, to enjoy things, to purchase treats, to find some meaning in their lives. That's my argument. That's my argument. That is literally my argument. My argument is, look, it's crazy. It's crazy to have to be insanely lucky to get to this position of power and privilege. That's not any way to live. We have an abundance of treats and a surplus of food. It doesn't make any sense that there are, in the wealthiest nation on earth, there are people, 600,000 of them, that are sleeping outdoors every night. That makes no sense. What gives?
Антисемитизмом называется распространение вражды к евреям. Когда проклятая царская монархия доживала свое последнее время, она старалась натравить темных рабочих и крестьян на евреев.
Oliver went back on Fox News and absolutely cooked.
Oliver Larkin. So, Oliver, listen.
He's still doing the Shia smirk.
On the show, you know, it takes some guts to do so. So I want to say thank you and a lot of respect to you for doing it. You know, I've done a little bit of research into your district there, and aside from all the things that are making headlines with you and, of course, the incumbent in the race, I just have to ask, you know, my mother-in-law fled Cuba because of the socialist communist takeover. So I know in your district there's a lot of folks like my mother-in-law, a lot of Cubans, a lot of Venezuelans that left socialism, that fled communism, and it kind of sounds like you want to bring it all right here to the USA and to Florida. How do you square that with a lot of those constituents in Florida that have a similar story?
I think what a lot of our constituents that have come from places like Cuba or Nicaragua or Venezuela that have seen United States foreign policy, we've had a blockade on Cuba and a trade embargo for 70, 80 years nearly. And what we've seen in that time is the repression of trade and of really with our closest trade partner. And we see a repression of political and civil rights that we actually see emanating from the Trump administration right now. We see crackdowns on freedom of speech. We see Representative Randy Fine and Laura Loomer trying to cancel our rally last night, along with corporate Democrats like State Representative Michael Gottlieb. So I think the conditions that a lot of people flee places like Cuba, coming to America looking for a better life, it's actually quite scary to see a Republican administration that's going after our freedom of speech and freedom of expression, and we're fighting.
That was a great flip, by the way. You're like, oh, you're talking about repression in places like Cuba? Well, guess what? Or Venezuela? Yeah. You know who's doing that? The Republican Party right now to people like me. Like, it's perfect. Perfect flip.
Fighting for the American dream.
They keep re-inviting him because they think it's a +4 Republican district, and they think foolishly that he would be easier to beat than Jared Moskowitz. That's why they keep inviting him. If you want to know the truth, there's two reasons. One, because it actually draws a lot of clicks, and it's great. He's great on television. And the other reason is because they think foolishly that he is easier to defeat for the Republicans in a +R4 district than Jared Moskowitz is. Because the district, if you look at it, is not actually comprised of Cubans. If you look at the district demographics, I believe Cubans are like 5% of the population. There's a lot of Hispanic people in their district, and then there's a lot of very wealthy Jewish people who are super pro-Israel in the district. And that's the Jared Moskowitz base, right? Jared Moskowitz base comes from a lot of right-wing on foreign policy American Jews that live in the district. However, where there are old Jewish folk that are pro-Israel, there are a lot of young Jewish folk that are not pro-Israel. And there's also a lot more people in the district as well beyond that. Florida demographics are different than anywhere else in the country. The Florida Latino and Hispanic demographics are very different than anywhere else in the country in terms of their voter patterns. okay, in terms of where they vote, how they vote. It's almost flipped. It's like topsy-turvy, upside down.
So, Oliver, I'm going to let the rest of the panel here ask you some questions. I'm not going to filibuster the whole time, but I do have to say, when my mother-in-law and so many others fled Cuba or Venezuela, they didn't flee because of Donald Trump. They fled because of socialism and communism and that form of economic governance that you're trying to bring here. So I just wanted to correct the record for that, because blaming that on Trump is kind of rich. But I'm going to let the rest of the team take a crack at it.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's very clear with what he's saying. He's like, look, you're talking about your parents like fleeing a certain form of repression. Well, Donald Trump is channeling that repression here in the United States of America. So I'm certain that your Cuban relatives would probably be just as worried about Trump. It's not fucking real. Obviously, they don't care. They love the repression that Trump pushes, but it doesn't matter. It's a good tactical retort.
You again. We appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, Mr. Larkin. So I did a little research myself. Some of these numbers you may have a better idea on, but one of the things on your platform is free college for all. You're advocating for socialism, but you want free college for all. Okay, you want taxpayers to pay for other people's tuition. Fair enough. But I mean, you went to a school that's almost $80,000 a year, a private school, to become an English teacher to make $60,000 a year, which is national average. We have a deficit of trade skills, making $70,000, $80,000, $90,000. HVAC, electrician, pipe fitter, you name it, lineman. The state of Florida has a scholarship program if you just stay in state and go to a state school. So I guess my question is, why are you out here advocating for socialism in a state where capitalism does work well when it seems like you haven't really tried it yourself?
Well, we have a higher cost of living in the Miami metropolitan area now than New York City, and we've had 30 years of Republican rule in Tallahassee. So this stark income and wealth inequality, where we see my district, the 25th Congressional District, having the highest concentration of billionaires in the country. At the same time, we see the poverty rate going up, and we have tens of millions of people in this country with student loan debt. So I believe that we need free public college and university tuition, and also free tuition at vocational and trade schools, with support for union apprenticeships so that we can rebuild America.
Okay, so you're talking about union apprenticeships, so at least you acknowledge that trades matter, but you want us to go and pay off the debt of people who went to a $70,000 a year school to earn $60,000 a year for the trade or the skill that they picked. It seems to me like through your own experience, you would be out there beating the drum for people to maybe forego a private school or a four-year college and go to a trade school, learn how to be a lineman, learn how to be a welder, learn how to do the blue-collar trades that pay very well, especially in the South and right-to-work states.
The United States can more than afford to forgive college loan debt and to make tuition free. We're spending $1 to $2 billion a day on this illegal war with Iran.
Right? It's you. It's everybody that makes more than
We're on track to spend hundreds of billions of dollars a year on a war that Congress never authorized, that Donald Trump dragged us into, that is raising our prices on gasoline, on food, on groceries.
Would you agree to at least exempt those that went to private school that cost more than they could make in a year in the profession they picked?
I'm talking about making public university tuition free, so private
like
institutions can continue to do what they like. But
GPA.
Like I said, I think that public universities should be tuition free, but private institutions can choose to do as they may. And I'm not running to abolish private universities, but
that's in the future. We'll get there.
Do you think that in the United States, when we have tens of millions of people, when we invest in our educational system, when we invest in our economy, that economic output is more than multiplied by the output of people who are better educated or have the vocational or trade apprenticeships that can go in and produce in the economy?
Well, Oliver, Lisa Booth here. It's interesting that you say that because you've attended some of the most elite institutions in the country. As Joey pointed out, Phillips Academy, it's one of the most prestigious boarding schools in the country. You also went to Swanee, which is very preppy, very elite. A lot of wealthy people go to school there. So some people might look at that and maybe think you're a little bit of a hypocrite on some of this stuff. But I've got to ask you, why do you think you're entitled to other people's money?
I'm not entitled to anyone else's money. I'm talking about universal programs that we all pay into. Many of your viewers that
how do you
support
fund those?
programs like Medicare and Social
money.
Security that. Well, when we have, like I said, $1 to $2 billion a day that we're spending on an illegal war with Iran, we can more than afford this. We've spent $2 trillion on wars with Iraq and Afghanistan that I was seeing in the previous segment. We're now talking about the downfall of the United States foreign policy regime that really just replaced the Taliban with the Taliban. So we've seen so much of our blood and treasure go into foreign wars overseas that have not made Americans safer.
But you've still not
and we've seen a
explained why you
declining
think you're
standard of living.
entitled to other people's money.
I'm not entitled to anyone else's money. I'm talking about universal programs that we all pay into. And for the millions of Americans that are struggling with affording the cost of their children's college education or paying down their student loan debt, when we invest in the American people, that economic output is more than multiplied. When we see their educational attainment, their trade school, their vocational programs, all putting money back into the economy with greater labor productivity, we're seeing a real negatively affected jobs program in this country. The
Oliver, can I
economy
ask you this?
with people
You're
no
sitting
longer
here,
seeking
but
work.
Oliver, let me ask you this. You know, as someone, who have attended some of these elite institutions that most Americans could never afford, they could never even dream of affording, how can you sit there and talk about income inequality and talk about some of these different things when you're the living definition of someone who has experienced great privilege of some of these incredible...
It's always like, oh, rich socialist, you're a privileged socialist. Like, it doesn't even matter. No, you're a hypocrite. You're a hypocrite. I find this rather odd. I mean, this has been my whole life, right? I've heard this my entire life. I heard this my entire life. It's just like the argument always revolves around like, if you're in a position of privilege, like, don't try to use that position for good. Don't try to use that position to advance society in a meaningful way. Just shut the fuck up and enjoy the show. Shut up. Why are you speaking out? Why are you speaking out against the system that has given you endless bounty? And again, I find that to be a very strange position. Zen fascism, as Matt Christman calls it. Yes. Right? I've given up on trying to explain to people my class position. I think it's much better to just say I'm a class traitor. I think that Americans will never understand it in general, so I'm just going to start saying I'm a class traitor. Yeah, I'm a class traitor. You wish more rich people would be like me. If more rich people would be like me, we'd live in a fucking utopia, okay? If every rich person thought the way I did, we would literally live in a goddamn utopia. Do you want rich people to behave like I do, believe the things that I do, or do you want them to believe the things that they currently believe that has led to your economic demise, that has only advanced your struggle? That's it. I'm just going to lean into that going forward. I gave you a brief taste of that earlier last night because they were trying to do this like reheated nachos bullshit. Hasan Piker is flying in a private jet to Coachella. He's a hypocrite just like Bernie Sanders and AOC are. I said, I was making $60K a year in 2017. We're on a award show, charted this for David Dobrik. And I was one of the nominees. And they asked me if I wanted to write. I said, yes. If I was MAGA, Sigma, grindset YouTuber who sells a bullshit course online, you'd treat me like you're God. They're going through the different periods of Hasan Piker controversy. It's very funny. Up next, he has an expensive home. Up next, he has an expensive car. And they're just going to reheat the same controversy cycles that I've gone through for years and years. So I'm just going to keep repeating it over and over again. I'm just going to say the same thing over and over again. Yeah, I'm rich and I believe the things that I believe in and I'm advancing these causes. Do you want rich people to, believe the things that I believe, or do you like the current system? Because the current system is one where the overwhelming majority of super wealthy people that control society, not Twitch streamers, but like actual people who control society, those who are in tremendous positions of power and privilege, they very clearly have tremendous disdain for you. They have tremendous disdain for you. That's the reason why you're suffering. Hasan Piker treats climate change as a real human cause and driven mainly by capitalism plus the fossil fuel industry. He calls personal carbon footprints a distraction invented by big oil, pushes systemic fixes like public energy ownership and ending private jets and cruises, links extreme weather, fires, and floods directly to it. Boom. It's very interesting. He would fly private quite often then. Oh, well, I don't. But who cares? Sure, buddy. I do. I love when these guys like lean into Grok and Grok dunks on them, but they're too stupid to understand that Grok is like, you know, opposing the position that they're trying to get out of it. History repeats itself as a very different meaning now online. Yeah, quite often. Yeah, I'm basically flying like Taylor Swift. My argument has always been simple. I am unbelievably privileged, okay? I am unbelievably fortunate. My job is basically like winning the lottery every single day, okay? And I never take it for granted. And from my position, I don't think people should have to be winning the lottery every single day to have some autonomy in their lives, okay? To have a little bit of time off when they want to spend time with their friends and family, to have disposable income, to enjoy things, to purchase treats, to find some meaning in their lives. That's my argument. That's my argument. That is literally my argument. My argument is, look, it's crazy. It's crazy to have to be insanely lucky to get to this position of power and privilege. That's not any way to live. We have an abundance of treats and a surplus of food. It doesn't make any sense that there are, in the wealthiest nation on earth, there are people, 600,000 of them, that are sleeping outdoors every night. That makes no sense. And the private jet controversy is even extra funny when it's the Republicans advancing this, when Donald Trump got gifted a $500 million private jet from the Qataris. What are you talking about? It quite literally is like, oh no, if you simply ran around saying like, no, it's not the super wealthy that are at fault here. It's not the systems that are at fault here. It's actually Mexicans. These guys would treat me like I'm their god. They would literally look at me like I am their god. They would treat me like a deity. They'd be like, oh, he's so based. He's so handsome. He works out. Unlike those pussy ass libtards, he's so strong. And he's showing people how to be an alpha dog. That's what they would say. But of course, because I want to advance humanity, unlock the potential of so many people that are currently being left behind due to our ridiculous system that we operate under, the economic organization of society that we operate under, that has a constant demand to oppress a permanent underclass so that the capital owning class can make unbelievable super profits, because that's the system we exist under. They turn around and they go, oh, you're a libtarded pussy. You're gay. You're woke. Yeah. If only I ran around saying, I got mine. Now it's time to fucking pull the ladder up. Then they would love me. I have nice things, and I want others to be able to have nice things as well. What is this? Larkin is winning Florida 25. A Trump 9+2 seat is essentially gifting it to Republicans on a silver platter. I don't really get progressives' goal here. If they wanted a seat in South Florida, Debbie Wasserman Schultz's seat is a far better option to focus on. We are focusing on both. We're focusing on both. Adam Carl says, this has been a confusing one for me too. From what I've seen, some on the left genuinely think Larkin is more electable because he supports generally popular policies like Medicare for all, and or being more lefty makes him more electable in a cycle like this. But most of what I've seen is a bit more nihilist, along the lines of neither can win, so let's humiliate Moskowitz, who is a ghoul about Israel, and another Democratic Socialist primary win. And the Dems don't need this seat in a majority anyway, so fuck that guy. It's crazy to think a Democrat can't win a Trump +9 district in this national environment, even in Florida. And while Dems should take back the House with a generic ballot like this, being that overconfident 2.5 months is extremely dangerous thinking. The newly drawn district is one of the most Jewish and likely one of the most pro-Israel districts in the country. Moskowitz, being a pro-Israel hardliner, is not out of touch with his district. While Moskowitz is easily one of my least favorite members of the House Dem caucus, in my opinion, it's pretty clear that he's one of the only one who can potentially hold this seat. Yeah, I don't think that's, I think that comes from the classic scared money don't make no money analysis.
Elite institutions. So how do you square that hypocrisy?
I certainly have attended some prestigious institutions, and I'm very proud of the background that I come from. My father is a retired United States Army captain who was able to attain his college education through the ROTC program. And when we see what the United States military service was able to provide for my family to climb out of the lower middle class and really attain a level of economic achievement in this country to be able to invest in their children, I'm very proud of my background, and I'm going to stand by it. And I believe that the motto of Phillips Exeter Academy of non sibi, not for oneself, is something that I'm putting back into public service, and seeing that we do not need to just restrict the highest levels of educational attainment to private institutions in this country, that we can invest in public education so that we can all stand to benefit from the really robust educational infrastructure that I enjoyed growing up. I want to see every single American be able to enjoy that same thing, and I think most of the viewers would also want their children or their grandchildren. Well, not if we're continuing this illegal war with Iran that we're 6 months into, that even a majority of Republican voters think is just a catastrophe.
Oliver, appreciate you coming on. Clay Travis here. You're obviously very concerned with giving people as many benefits as possible, but you also want to abolish ICE. We're $40 trillion in debt. Presumably, a lot of the free tuition would potentially, under your plan, go to illegal immigrants. We know roughly there are at least 20 million people illegally in this country. Should there be borders? What would be too much illegal immigration for you? 50 million? 100 million? You talked about Cuba. You talked about Nicaragua, Venezuela. Should we take all of Latin America inside of our borders? Where would you draw the line when it comes to who we should welcome in this country?
I would draw the line at stopping these crushing sanctions regimes that Donald Trump has leveled on countries like Venezuela in his first term.
And sanctions and everything else, but just pure numbers. What is a number where you, Oliver, in South Florida would say, you know what, we've got too many people who aren't citizens of the United States? Right now, it's 20 million. Is that not enough? Would you do 50 million? Would you do 100 million? How many people do you think the United States should?
I mean, look, the answer that I would give to this question is very simple. The unlimited migration patterns into the United States of America is our design. It's the design of the capital owning class. They clearly benefit from having a constant flow of migrants that they can use and abuse as the permanent underclass that depresses wages for the documented workers in this country as well. What we want to do is offer conditional amnesty that's super popular, way more popular than mass deportations, way less costly than mass deportations, and offer them a more just piece of the pie so that we all, as the American working class, can advance. We all, as the American working class, can take ownership over our own productive forces, take more from what we create, what we generate. And as far as like the number of migrants coming in, the reality of the matter is nobody wants to leave their homes. People leave their homes, people leave their culture and their language and their families behind only because we have destroyed these countries. So it plays just as you can't really have free healthcare without free college education so that doctors are not saddled with hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt just to become a doctor. You can't have a more humane border process without a more humane foreign policy. A foreign policy that focuses on making sure that people's material conditions and material needs are met in the global South.
Take in, and how many of them do you think we should provide free college for? What's the number? When would you, Oliver, say, you know what, that's too many?
I think that we should follow in the footsteps of Ronald Reagan's immigration policy and grant amnesty to the millions of people that are living, working, paying taxes.
Okay, so you're going to give 20 million currently in America illegally citizenship, but wouldn't that incentivize hundreds of millions of more people to come into America? I'm just asking, when is the number that you, Oliver Larkin, would say, hey, there are too many illegals coming in this country? Should we bring in all of Mexico? Should we bring in all of Venezuela? Like, what is the number where you would say, hold on, this is getting a...
Is 20 million the number of Hispanic people in America? No, 20 million is the number that these guys have arrived at for undocumented migrants in the United States. 65 million is the number of Hispanics in America.
A little bit too expensive for the 50% of Americans who actually pay.
Inflation. Inflation is born out of the migrant crisis is the biggest bullshit. It is the classic trope, the classic lie. Don't look at who's actually driving up prices. Don't look at greedflation. Don't look at the Trump administration's decisions that have actually skyrocketed prices for common goods that we need for survival, and just immediately reorient the blame and the focus back to undocumented migrants. This is fucking bullshit.
Federal income taxes to be paying.
Yeah, immigrants are the reason why gas is $4 a gallon, brother. Really? That's interesting. Because I could have sworn it was the war in Iran that shut off the Strait of Hormuz, but
I don't expect we're going to see much more immigration from Mexico when
you think they will
Mexico's President
stop?
Claudia
Hold on.
Sheinbaum
Why
is
would they
raising
stop
the
if they
minimum
can
wage
become
and
citizens?
increasing home ownership.
But you think
Because they're
Mexico is
investing more in
better
their
than
people
America?
than we are.
there's actually a pretty decent response too. I mean, it probably an audience that's not going to be receptive to that, but I guess I was wrong.
You think life in Mexico is so good that Mexicans are going to stop coming here?
What I'm saying is that there are governments outside of the United States that are investing in their people.
Wait,
I
then why
believe
are
that
they
we
coming
need secure
here,
borders,
Oliver?
that we have safe immigration,
Oliver,
because Donald
if
Trump
they're
and the
doing
Republican
such a
Party
good
is
job in those
destabilizing many of
countries,
these
why are they
countries.
coming here? I don't understand your argument. Do you think Cuba has more civil rights than the United States? Why are people getting on floating rafts and risking their lives to get here if those countries are so well run?
Because Donald Trump has the Navy blockading the island of Cuba from
That
even
doesn't
obtaining
even
oil.
logically make sense. It just means that people are even more willing to risk
that we're
their
talking
lives.
about here. And of course,
I just got back from Mexico. They do not want to come to America at all. Yeah. The more material conditions improve in Latin American countries, like even in Mexico, right? Like the more material conditions improve in Mexico, the less likely Mexicans are to come to the United States of America. It's that fucking simple.
Of course, what we need in the United States is for Donald Trump and this administration, the Department of Homeland Security,
Oliver,
to stop
I think you
taking
should
away
move to
people's legal
Cuba
status,
and run for
like with
president
temporary
there and
protected
see how your
status,
campaign
where we
goes,
have
because you
half
might
of
be
the
more
nation's
welcome there.
TPS holders from Haiti that are living in Florida that Donald Trump and Kristi Noem are ripping away.
Thank you,
their legal
Oliver. You've made a
status.
really
Donald Trump
strong
ran on
argument on
solving the
behalf of the
immigration
Socialist Party.
crisis.
We'll
and-
continue to discuss.
I mean, he absolutely cooked, but once again, you can measure his success. You can measure his success in how increasingly silly they get in retaliation. The more he actually puts forth a coherent narrative, the more he puts forward a coherent narrative, the more belligerent they get, the more they try to chop them down. You know what I mean? The desk is full of chattering monkeys. They're such babies. Holy shit. Yeah. Yeah, you can measure Oliver's success or any Democratic Socialist on Fox News' success by how loud the panel gets.
Oliver, listen.
Thanks so much for having me on.
We have a lot of questions for you. We appreciate you being a good sport.
Absolutely.
We
It's
appreciate
easier for them to blame someone else for their problems than to admit that they're part of the problem. Immigrants are the popular target. They built an economy that depends on immigrant labor, then made it almost impossible to immigrate legally. A lot of people like that power that it gives them. It's a lot easier to exploit workers when they're disposable. Yes, our two-tier immigration and our two-tier labor system is unbelievably beneficial for the bosses and not so beneficial for the workers. And it's beneficial in twofold, okay? As long as you keep hitting the immigrants are responsible for this or that narrative, then you can justify their oppression. You can justify not offering them a pathway to citizenship. Because if they all became citizens, then the bosses wouldn't actually do as well. The bosses and their profits would not look the way that they do. However, the rest of the labor force, as well as the migrant labor, would actually be able to demand a bigger piece of their productive output. They would be able to demand a bigger piece of the products that they generate. That's the problem for these guys. Cedin deden Nesrin baban.